hold on.
Green.
Okay, I'm starting streaming.
What?
He's starting to stream.
There's green on the can. So
That's green. Look at that green.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. So, question, Damon. Are you becoming a fan collector?
Became. I have not bought one in a while. The last one I bought was around the lit AF for the holiday concert from.
How many fans do you have?
Let's see, 5 or 6. Hold on. So, Wolf, Leather Pride, Lit AF, Shade, the puppy one. 5.
Okay.
Unless I'm forgetting one all of a sudden. No, I don't think so. No.
Gary, how many fans do you have? Just curious.
20.
No.
I'm kidding.
Well, technically 3.
You've got
because I've got my Shade fan here at my desk that I grabbed. I have a Shade fan in the background over there. That's the like mint condition one that's probably very dusty and not touched. And then I have a cute little rainbow fan.
Yes.
That's it. This was the first one. This was just a silly lark. I got it for Pride. I took it to Columbus Pride, I think. And then everybody stopped me along the way. Where did you get that? Da, 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 da. And then what killed me was we walked past like 6 booths that had them. And I was like, you can buy them.
They're right there.
Yeah.
Up there.
You can pay an outrageous, exorbitant fee for it. Because I bought like a dozen of those for like, I don't know, $6 or some shit. And I had like given them out to people. So,
and if you're wondering why Damon has so many fans, this one goes to rehearsal with me. It never leaves that bag. I took it out because it had the green on it because of St. Patrick's Day. The other ones are in a drawer. The Letter Pride one goes with me to events. So it has its own. It's in a bag that I take with me when I go to places, like go for like leather. My leather, club group events and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I'm a fat bitch and I get hot and sweaty depending on what we're doing. And I want to cool down. And this is a very quick and easy way to do it.
Listen to you.
I wouldn't call you a fat bitch.
I call myself a fat bitch.
Okay, Silky Ganache.
Oh, no.
Whoosh. You can't see it, but I'm basically taking my hand from in front of my head and moving it over my head.
That's you don't get that joke over your head.
If you watched the latest RuPaul's Drag Race Untucked episode, you would understand why that was like one of the shadiest things I could say to David right now.
Yes.
But it was said with love.
I'm sure it was.
Because I was just being an asshole about that thing that happened in that episode. I was like, oh, girl. We'll talk about that later today.
Yes, we will.
I just realized because you start putting like the pre-show tags into the doc, but for the actual shows where all of these tags are actually linked to, no one hears these parts.
Well,
I'm just making it. This is just making an observation. So you continue being you.
It gives them an understanding of content they're missing by not being a patron.
Oh, there you go.
There's a method to my madness.
Method to my madness.
Or I've always done it this way, so I'm not stopping.
Well, it is good to have it there for documentation purposes. So
yeah.
When was that episode when Damon called himself a fat bitch? Do a quick search.
502.
Wait a minute, he never calls himself a fat bitch in here.
It took till episode 502 for him to say that. Anyways,
They won't see it because they won't. It's not in the they won't hear it in the episode.
I
So
know.
until
Where's that episode where he calls himself a fat bitch? You do a search. Oh, it's 502. You listen to the episode, but he doesn't call himself a fat bitch in this episode.
oh, must be because it's special content.
it's pre-show content or the pre and post show content, which is only available to Patreon subscribers.
You too could have access to that fun stuff for as little as $1 a month. There, we did our ad.
1-900 fat bitch.
Call now. Operators are standing by. God. Okay.
I'm not at work. That's not me making falsehoods. Are we ready to begin?
I'm trying to get the Cubs Out Loud episode, which has David call himself a fat bitch.
I'd be happy to help set up your Patreon account. At what level would you like to join today?
Oh, yes.
What's this Patreon thing?
Ooh.
I have to pay money for it? This is bullshit.
And this website is crap.
Not everything in life is free, just so you know.
Well, if you want,
what about that song that says the best things in life are free?
if you would like web development, you need to provide them
to
money in order for them to
be fair, air is the best thing in life because it allows you to live, and it is free. So that is not a false statement.
Best things in life are free. Now that I discovered what you mean to me.
And
wasn't that Janet Jackson and Luther Vandross?
I don't remember.
I'm not sure if they didn't. I don't think they did the original, but or maybe they did. Maybe that was the original. I don't know. I thought it was a cover. But
YouTube needs to stop its fuckery.
What do you mean? What's wrong?
Because you just posted in the Telegram chat, and it is episode 502. Thank you very much. Not episode 500.
I don't think
that's shit from a couple weeks ago.
I don't think that's YouTube. I think that's Telegram caching the preview.
Rude.
So it is Luther and Janet, and it was the first one. It was produced.
Oh, okay.
It was for the 1992 American film Mo Money, starring Damon Wayans. It was recorded for Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis produced soundtrack to the 1992 American film Mo Money.
Gee, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis?
Yep.
And it's Janet Jackson involved? Shocking.
Okay. Are we ready to jump in and get this going?
Dan.
I'm currently in a very casual mode. I woke up at
That's nice.
6 o'clock this morning. I don't know why either. I just couldn't continue sleeping. So I've been playing WoW this entire time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's stop playing WoW and put on a show, shall we?
I'm not playing WoW. I haven't been playing WoW since I started the call. Where's the thing? Is that thing? Is this thing? Oh, no, I need title card. Thank you. Do that thing. Oh, I'm going to do something which Gary doesn't do when he does the DR thing. I'm going to count down, but I'm going to put a pause before I start playing so that I have a nice cut without having somebody's voice in the middle of the intro. That's Q, Damon, Shade. There you go. Thank you. 3, 2. Oh, wait.
You think I care?
Well, we can't hear anything anyway, so.
Oh, yeah. Right. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Poor thing.
Let's try this. I'm just going to go right into it. Why? Because. In 3, 2. It's March 17th, 2019. I know what year it is. I'm Jeff.
Who's your bear? That's right. I am your bear.
I'm Damon.
I don't brew the tea, I just serve it.
And that makes me Gary.
Don't hurt nobody with your bad self.
And welcome to Comes Out Loud, the Bear Podcast of an Interminable Length, episode number 502. And happy St. Patty's Day!
Yay!
Don't worry, I'll be wearing green later. I'm just kept in my pajamas. So.
He's all comfortable in his clothes.
Yeah, the only person wearing green today on the show is Damon, so props to him. He gets a gold star.
Really?
Yes.
Ding!
And today on the show, totally forgot to check to see if I got the thing. Oh, here it is. It's time, once again, for one of these. It is time for another Hostful News update. Gary, what's been in the news?
Many things, but we're going to focus on something specific for the bear community because people got opinions, and I think there's a lot of concern, potentially confusion.
FUD?
So today's show is about the GROWLr acquisition.
Oh.
So are we? So is our goal today to calm, get everybody to calm the fuck down, and to relieve them of their FUD, their fear, uncertainty, and doubt?
I had not thought about that at all.
No. The answer is no.
You're just gonna make everybody panic more.
No. I think I just have a neutral stance about it personally. I'm not upset and angry. I'm not scared. I'm also not giving no fucks about it. Like, I'm very in the middle ground because, like a lot of things, when change happens, you don't know what the outcome will necessarily be. So while all of us have the capability to do what if thinking, which is those scenarios where you're like, well, what if this happens? And then you imagine all these outcomes. I mean, we might get into some of that discussion today, but I was just like, well, this is an unexpected thing.
Yeah.
And when you know a little bit of the backstory behind it, I think it paints things differently than if you just read a headline. I guess I'll put it that way.
Yeah, agreed.
So, we have two articles that are linked. I'm sure there was like probably a couple dozen of them all resharing the same kind of basic content, whether it came from the Associated Press or whatever. But so for those of you that don't know, so recently the bear community basically found out that the app GROWLr, which was created within the bear community and has been owned by a member of the bear community since its inception, since COL502 created it. It was recently acquired by the Meat Group. And acquired is just a fancy way to say that they bought it. But it was purchased/sold in that case. So last year or 2017, Scruff was purchased by another company. And now GROWLr has fallen suit, but I think people are seeing a trend. And people might be concerned about, like, well, they might have had their complaints about GROWLr and had opinions about, like, what was being done with the app and some of the features and the rollouts and things that kind of worked and things that didn't. If they were paying money, there may have been a psychological factor that people thought, well, but I'm giving money to a member of us, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so they might feel more comfortable in being supportive. And I think that's possibly some of the emotions that people might have been having when this announcement came out, because it's like, well, if I pay anything into the service anymore on the app, where is that money going? Does it help? Like, is it really going anymore to the owner? Did they, just basically buy a vacation house and move to Aruba and we'll never hear from them again? I mean, like, I think there's lots of wild thoughts and speculation.
Yeah, it's been very I've not seen anything. So again, I will own that I pay for a GROWLr. I've been paying for a couple of years now, and it's one of the few apps, I should say, that I enjoy, and the fact that, and that's the reason why I keep agreeing. Well, actually, because they auto bill and I forget, and I don't ask for my money back. But reality
That's exactly what they prefer.
Yeah, pretty basically. And I'm good with it. Honestly, I've not had any real problems with the app. I think it's a little dated, not like overly dated, but a little dated. Like the big thing for me is one of the few things I would want is I have a partner and this is his profile, which you can do on Scruff, but you can't do here, which is fine, whatever. But it was one of those few things that kind of would be like nice, because as someone who is partnered and mentions that they're partnered, it would be cool to have that feature, right, for the sake of it. But since since this announcement has gone on, I've not seen anything change so much, at least not yet. Right. So I don't think people need to necessarily like panic. Right. The way it sounds, reading the articles, the two people that were basically running GROWLr, which was one of our own and his, I guess, internet developer.
Was it his husband?
Developer. No, it was someone else. I can't remember the name, but it wasn't his husband, our partner, because they mentioned his partner separately later on in the article. But anyway, so it was two people. They have been brought into the Meet group, and according to, if I remember, they're going to stay on for a year. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a, so don't, worry. I'm sure Meet group will change some things. They're adding capable functions, as they've mentioned before. And honestly, to me, it's been a wait and see. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's it, folks. We're done.
Shortest show ever. So for those of you that don't know, Coley created the app back in 2010. He used to live in the heartland of America. He lived in the state of Ohio. I actually am like 2 degrees separated from him. I met him in person very briefly, so I'm not going to claim that I know him. But a very nice guy in general ways. Most things I've heard about him is that he's very nice. A couple of years ago, within a handful of years ago, he and his now husband moved from Ohio to LA, out to California, which I know raised some eyebrows with some people because they were like, what's all that business about? And I think people might have felt like, what, you're like you got this app and you got all this money, like you got to move to be a West Coast bear or whatever. People talk shit all the time. The reality is, like, he can do whatever he wants with his life. And one of the things I want to say now, before we get into more details, is people have to figure out where they want to place themselves in this situation. So we have in our country this concept of the American dream, that you can become a success story, that you can be, build your own life. You can have the life that you want to have. So in a way, Coley has done that. He created an app. He saw a need, a problem, found a solution, created it, and has developed it over the years, added things, and made an income off of it. So now the social media app has been put into an $11.8 million deal. Wow. That is $4.8 million in cash and $7 million in a line of credit. And it's a big freaking deal. It will be literally life-changing. And I'm not sure how that will end up necessarily for Coley. And in a way, it's none of my business because I don't really know him. And I'm not expecting to see him or interact with him a whole lot. So it doesn't faze me, from that aspect of that. So when you think of it in terms of like the American dream concept, I'm just like, okay, great. Like, so he's been a success, and who am I to shit on that? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not really my place. And yet I can understand people being butthurt because they may feel that the community is being abandoned by selling to a conglomerate company who is not, to our knowledge, gay owned or gay run. And is not a part of our community, and therefore all these fears rise up, and people are like, how are they functionally going to make this thing work? Do they even understand how this thing operates and the content and the intent of it, and what's going to come about from it? And I think that those are reasonable fears because it's the unknown and people just aren't quite sure. And a lot of it, I think, comes from the fact that nobody knew, according to the one article that I was reading, that this has been in the works for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
COL502 has actually been like marketing or like not selling, but like looking for this type of an opportunity to make the app better by expanding, getting, more talented individuals. But instead of home growing it, if you go to a company that has that structure,
resources,
right?
And so he didn't make this decision lightly.
No,
I mean, if they've been in talk for 2 years, that's a lot of time to think about it and ask the questions, get clarifications. I mean, they're going to be on continue for the year. The impressions I'm getting is they're trying to keep GROWLr, but using the resources and features that the Meet Group has already developed, such as the live streaming. Which I'm not understanding how that works, but whatever.
Right.
To integrate that in to add more features, and this may be just something that Cooley would have wanted before the app or something similar, seen it in other apps. But when you're only a 2-man group, getting all that together and the money to even afford any of the server costs and such like that could put a bit of a strain on you. So having that acquisition, who knows, maybe even after the whole initial year contracted to be with the company continues on, or leaves and creates another app because he's just an app developer in general, but who knows.
Yeah, I also want to make a quick correction. I think I misspoke when I had said earlier about the other app that had been purchased. It was actually GROWLr. I think I might have said Scruff. That was bought in 2017. So my feeling on it is like knowing that the concept is to be able to further develop the app, and give it some features, some things that haven't been there before, and make improvements is kind of the goal behind the concept of the sell, so to speak. I think that's perfectly fine. I think again it's more about where do people stand on this concept? Are they okay with this happening or not? Notably, Coley is not immediately disappearing. I'm looking for the information in the one article. It was talking about the fact that that he's going to be on, I think, for 2 years.
I think it's a year. It's down at the bottom of the I think it's the Biz Journal one that mentions it. No, it's not. It's the
other one.
Yeah. Pretty sure it's the other one. Come on.
Yes, you're right. Comiskey and his husband will stay on for GROWLr for at least a year as per their contracts. So this isn't an immediate dump. It's not like they just handed him a big fat publisher clearinghouse check and he was like, "Bah," and disappeared. I mean, to be fair, an initial $4.8 million in cash is a hell of a lot of money. Mind you, after taxes, that probably is more like $2 million. But just being realistic. So yeah, I mean, and he probably just paid for his house that they bought out in LA a couple years ago, I guess. So yeah, I mean, people have very interesting kind of insights and aspects about the different things that are happening. I think I'm very much in a mode of wait and see. My renewal of my membership is coming up very soon, and I've been thinking a lot about whether or not that's important to me. If I go without the extra features at this moment, there's also a lot of unknown. Are they going to change the fee structure, and are you going to be grandfathered in? If you keep your premium membership level, if they make new prices and the prices are higher, do you get locked in at your lower rate? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there's just so much unknown about this situation. And what I find interesting is like what I really want to know is like, are these programmers ready for this? Because let's be honest about it. While we talk about GROWLr as a great way for the community to be connected to each other, there is a lot of peen and holes being shown through this app. Like,
okay, wait. So you don't think that these developers who are working on dating apps for the straight people aren't seeing peen and vajayjay on theirs?
Not to the level that GROWLr has, I think.
We'll see.
Well,
like
maybe
I will
not,
say
but
this. I will say
That's
this.
fair enough. We're gays. Come on.
Jeff, you ask an accurate question because I'm going to own my ignorance. I'm not on straight apps, so I don't know what's on straight apps. But trust me,
Chris, you're in the chat. Can you check on this for us?
I'm going to generalize here because gay men are men and they're driven by testosterone. It's a lot about sex. It's a lot about getting off. In a heteronormative app environment, I think that that's still happening for the men, but not for the women. So you've got more of this dance kind of thing happening. So I don't think the nudity aspect in that is happening as much. I mean, yes, men can be assholes and they can just like unsolicited dick pics get sent to women, and that's inappropriate. It doesn't matter who it happens to or what your gender is. But I think it's just more prevalent on GROWLr, so I'm not sure if that they're really ready for this. I mean, that's the part where I'm thinking, and it doesn't matter, honestly, because I'm not one of those programmers. So if they want to look at a hairy hole, hey, like that may be part of your job now.
And just to be clear, our resident bi guy, Chris, in the chat, has been on the straight apps and can confirm that there's more in the gay ones. So you are correct on that, but it's just a volume thing, I'm assuming.
Well, and that's the other thing that I found very interesting in the stats about GROWLr is that it's not a large footprint in terms of the number of active users and that kind of stuff. So I'm just kind of like...
Maybe it balances out. Like,
yeah, I mean,
the proportions of peen in GROWLr is larger, but because of the number of accounts on other apps, the actual volume of actual peen is actually smaller or something. I don't know.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, because they said the company's daily active users numbers, they peg it at about 200,000. And I'm like, okay, so it's not quite 250,000 daily users. And that's, I mean, it's a sizable chunk, but in the scheme of all the apps that are out there, like I've always known that GROWLr is on smaller scale compared to Scruff, compared to Grindr. So, and there are others that are out there that I think are less.
Scruff, from my understanding, was supposed to be the original bear dating app, but
I think that's what everybody gravitated to because there was just Grindr, to my knowledge. If I recall correctly, there was just Grindr, and everybody had no choice but Grindr, and everybody kind of got, not everybody, a lot of people kind of got twitchy about it because it was the true utopian, like all the men are on Grindr, and then there was also a lot of attitude apparently on Grindr. And then Johnny, who created Scruff, was like, I want my type of men, so he developed his own thing, which ended up becoming Scruff. So I think the bear community went over here, and they're like, ooh, like, you know, there's like there's like, you know, otters and bears and wolves and oh my. And so, you know, I think there was a gravitation because the concept of Scruff was that men are men, which is a bunch of bullshit. But like marketing wise, people were like, you know, there's hairy dudes over here basically. And then that created that whole like Grindr is for twinks bullshit. So I think when Scruff came around, it was okay. And that might have been part of Coley's impetus. I don't know for certain to be like, well, this is okay, but this isn't still, it's not the bear community.
Yeah.
And notably, Johnny has said that he didn't consider himself when he started the Scruff app a member of the bear community. So therefore, you know, it wasn't necessarily meant just for the bear community. So when Coley created it and it kind of came out, I was like, what's this shit? Look at this. Check it out. And then, you know, when you sign up and then you get a profile and then you get, you know, beautiful pictures of men that you may or may not know. And you can meet, you know, that can change your life in a way. So
change your life.
And one of the other things also about the acquisition, the details I wanted to mention is that over the next 2 years, if certain goals are set, Coley and his business partner can benefit from more money. So there's an investment interest in this whole situation, not just in that they're going to initially get money up front.
Yeah.
And then, that they have a contract for a year. But if they work together with the meat group, the new owners, and are able to make the integrations and the upgrades and that kind of stuff, then it pays off for them. So more. So I can understand why they may want to continue to work on this and see what they can make out of it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that they're going to be with it forever necessarily. I don't know what their personal exit strategy is or their concept or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that even if they do leave, that it's not still going to be. I mean, it may not be necessarily by bears for bears, but anymore. But it doesn't mean that it will take away from anything to make it so it's not still bear-ish. That makes sense. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I don't think my words are working for me.
What it seems like to me is that, as I think what you mentioned, Jeff, in the beginning, is that these two guys realize the app needs to grow and it needs to change and it needs to be bigger and better and whatever. And they either don't have the resources or don't have the time or don't have the energy to do all the things to make it better. It happens like that. Therefore, here comes this company that has done this before with other apps, dating apps at that, and they have all these other features that they can integrate into GROWLr. So why don't we just sell it and let them handle everything else, and we get money, we get paid, and we can move on and maybe do something else or whatever.
Right.
I've been on the fence about that. I think that's I like that idea. I think that's the perfect idea. Like, if you can't do it or you won't do it, then and someone else wants to do it. What's the problem?
I think a big thing about this is knowing your limitations.
Mm-hmm.
I think it may have been, in some people's opinions, late in the game for Coley and his business partner to recognize that they're not able to achieve what needs to be done or what is desired of the consumer base. Let me put it that way. It's difficult, especially if you're a person who builds something from the ground up and you're heavily invested in it. Nothing is 100% success. We just make mistakes. So you roll out something or you try something and it doesn't work. And then more than ever, I think because of the internet and social media, people feel more empowered to express their opinion about things than they had in the past. And part of that is, I think, that disconnection issue because they're not actually in your face. So it's like you want to say, you want to be shady and say shit about somebody, but would you really say it to their face? Maybe, maybe not. And I think that's one of the key things is that it takes a while to grow within yourself and your own development to recognize I just can't do it. I have to delegate. I have to, invest in other people. And that can be really difficult, especially when it's yours and it's your baby, and you've been maintaining it and growing it. And I realize I'm kind of talking like I'm defending Coley, and that's not my point. It's just to say, how can you trust other individuals, especially if you don't know them? If they've been around since the beginning, that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you move to a whole new area, you meet other people, and you're not necessarily sure what their motivations are. So perhaps this has been a long time coming, and there just hasn't been that right match, that right fit. None of the articles, I think, make any reference. For all we know, this could have been, marketed and cogs in the wheel in the process for quite some time, and there have been other companies, but it just never really came together.
Yeah.
And, I mean, not a lot, but a good number of podcasts I listen to are about not entrepreneurial, but about the spirit of the person and how they're doing certain things. And one I listen to is called How I Built That. And it's really interesting because they talk to the CEOs of companies who begin things and how they basically failed again and again. And then but they just kept tweaking it and making it better or improvements, or one massive mistake totally went sideways and then took them in a different direction they never imagined and started ultimately the business that we know now. And I think that's a lot of the stuff that people just don't know about. It's like, oh, you see this thing, it's a successful brand, and you're like, oh, well, that's the thing, that's great. But how often do you really know the history of stuff? So because of that, I think I'm being a little, I don't want to say reserved, but I'm just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. I have my own reservations because some of the stuff that's in here, when the announcement was made and you find out what the Meet Group does and what their big current technology is with video streaming, my first thought was, so everyone's going to be able to do chatterbait only in GROWLr? Because that's what that sounds like to me. But I don't know how well that's going to work, because then apparently they've gamified it in other apps the Meet Group has, and it says since October 2017, the company being Meet Group has made 82 million related to streaming tactics, with about 20% of the users engaging in the streaming content. And I was like, okay, but there's a part of me that's like, are you underestimating this population? Because I'm not saying that other populations are ignorant. I'm just saying this population tends to have more tech savvy people in it. So if we want to stream jerking our dicks, we just use Skype, use FaceTime, you know what I mean?
There's set up a Chatterbait account.
Right. I mean, and then go private and give a password. So I mean, I think
don't forget in the article they mentioned that the streaming content will be required to match up with the standards for profile pictures, which means that no, you wouldn't be able to masturbate on the live stream.
Right, which I'm really curious to see how they're going to handle that, because I'm like, some dudes are going to totally test that.
Totally. And my usual thing, I haven't done, because one of the recent updates to GROWLr has been the video whatever. Where did it go? Where did my GROWLr go? Video calls.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was gonna say, let's talk about a feature none of us are using right now.
Yeah. Which I
Not
don't
to be shady, but I'm just gonna own it. I'm like, what? Oh,
I've never used it before. I turned it off the minute I saw it because I knew what would happen. I'd get random calls from people 3,000 miles away wanting to talk to me or, basically show me their stuff. And I was like, no, I don't even want to bother even giving anyone that opportunity. I don't know if anyone does. I don't know if anyone
it's just like phone sex except video. With video.
Well, I'm just saying, if that's there and then Meet Group changes it essentially, because they're probably going to have to.
I don't think they're going to necessarily change the live calls.
We'll see how it goes. They could potentially
live streaming is more kind of like what we have here. It's like somebody goes to youtube.com/comesoutloud and we're streaming, they can just click in and watch the live stream. But when you're talking about video calls, it's more of a one-to-one sort of thing. So the only two people that's private, so it's just like when you unlock private photos. Private photos can have peen. The public photos cannot.
Okay.
So
I see.
Honestly, I don't think there's going to be any. I don't think there's going to be any issues when it comes to the video calls, at least for content wise. And who knows? Even with the live streaming technology, they could still use parts of that for video calls and maybe make the video calls better.
So let's say that what you were describing, Jeff, is the way it plays out for the distinction. So video calls are private, and that's where you can show off all your goodies. And in live streaming, you're not. Then I'm kind of like, okay, so I guess the way this plays out is that you could watch Comes Out Loud live streaming through GROWLr, and then I'm wondering why. Why would you want to do that? That's even more in the realm of, I don't understand how this technology would be utilized by the community. Do you know what I mean?
We'll see.
That seems to me to be the thing that the new owners are focusing on. That's one of the first things they're going to roll out in 6 to 9 months. And part of me is like, Why? Did you bother to did you survey the demographic? Do they want this? How would it like, and I'm not being an asshole about it. I'm just kind of like, it kind of sounds like, you're made like because you have a thing, everybody should use it. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't mean that they want it.
Well,
or that
you
they
also
will
keep in
necessarily use
mind, as they said, only 20% of their current audience actually
Right.
engages in it. So 20% of 200,000
40,000.
that might engage in this one. So or it may
Yeah.
be lower. Maybe it's just not our thing. But it's just an additional feature. It's not like all
Yeah.
the other features are going away or anything.
Right. Right.
Just because it's a feature of an application doesn't mean you have to use it. I mean, if you want to like play with it, see what's going on with it, go for it. But
Right.
But it may just not be your bag of chips. Like the video calling is not your bag of chips.
Well, and that's one of the things. I mean, I'm looking at all the stuff that's available, and do we still have it, or they take it away?
What?
Well, there's a notes feature.
Yeah.
I guess they took away the blog thing.
Nope, it's still there.
It is?
My feed.
No. But like, I thought there was a blog thing where you could post your own content versus my feed. Anyways,
I found it there, so I'm not even looking at it.
yeah, I'm just scrolling through mine right now. Based on the latest version for iOS, I'll say
I
it that
also
way.
don't pay for mine, so I don't have I wouldn't have necessarily have access to all the features. I can't
there's
watch
some
any
things
of the
that are-
videos.
There are some things I think that are kind of helpful. Like one of the things I was raising an eyebrow about is like you can integrate with Facebook. It's like you can connect your Facebook profile to GROWLr. And when I saw that pop up a long time ago, I was like, why? like
Why not?
You were like, no.
because I don't need everyone who's connected to my Facebook to know about GROWLr. Like I don't have separate Facebook profiles for like my bear life versus my, real life. I have one. So to me, connecting my Facebook profile to GROWLr does not make sense because first of all, I don't need people from GROWLr stalking me on Facebook. That's the thing. And then on the other side of it, like I don't know how that cross, connection works. You know what I mean? If like my check-ins for events on GROWLr would appear on my Facebook, like how does that set up for privacy factor? Like I don't need my family knowing that I checked in at a bathhouse during Claw. Like, I mean, that's not, no, it's not,
Oh,
they don't
my.
want to know and I don't want them to know. So like, granted, there are other people who probably live their lives way more openly than me and give no fucks and don't care. That's great. Then maybe that feature really benefits them. I don't know. So the streaming thing that came out sort of in the articles / press releasey kind of and content made me laugh. But I was like, honestly, at first I was kind of like, oh, so now we can just like, stream live porn with each other, I guess. Okay, now I get it. That's not really what's probably going to be happening. So yeah.
So here's my philosophy on it. I don't think anybody's gonna worry about. So take your fear and certainty doubt and push it aside. Just let it come, see what happens, and if it turns out that GROWLr ends up not as they improve, doesn't become your bag of chips, it's not your bag of chips.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the upside I see to this is that there are not massive plans being explained right now about significant changes or upgrades in the immediate future. So I think that
and that just might not even be clear to them yet. So
right,
and sometimes you don't want to announce something until you know it's going to happen or you're ready to actually deploy it in the very near future too. Because you don't want to get everybody's hopes up and then be like, hey, remember that thing we talked about? Yeah, we're not going to do it. It's not working.
Well, and I think one of the key things that I've always told people, having been an employee of a company that had to deal with acquisitions, I always tell folks like there's a settle period, like not a shakedown. You know what I mean? But like everything kind of gets upended, and then you got to wait for the dust to settle, I guess is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So like we probably have 3 to 6 months of not really understanding what's happening, not going on as the users, as well as the new owners and the former owners that are going to now be employees. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like we're dating and we're going, and there's a dance and who leads and who follows and da da da. And I think that that's more of what's to come in 2019, and then it might not be until next year that we see changes of any sort per se. I don't know. I think I just realized I'm falling into this thing I was talking about at the beginning of the call with us, is that you just don't know. So the unknown is the mitigating factor that everyone I think was kind of like. Well, I think everybody was like, "What the fuck?" at first. I mean, I know I was when I saw the headline that says GROWLr is owned by straight people. I was like, "What?" I was like,
Say what?
Right.
The answer is it is now owned by straight people.
Sure.
Right. And because I was like, in my head I was like, Coley sold out, but then that was my immediate reaction, because last I knew he still owned it, was in charge of it, and all that kind of jazz, and I hadn't heard anything different
until now.
Yeah, and I think we've also got a dynamic landscape in terms of technology that has changed a lot. I mean, it's 2019. The app has been around for going on 9 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Almost a decade. That's a long ass time to be constantly redeveloping and meeting things. I mean, think about all the platforms and the devices that are out there.
And the updates to each of those platforms.
Right, and all the requirements that go with it. Like, most people think of the landscape, it's like, okay, so you've got Android and iOS as the two major mobile platforms. But then within those two platforms are all these devices that you have to be able to set everything up for coding, for resolution and how it works and integrates, button placements, I mean, all that jazz. So, in a way, I think it's pretty, I don't want to say awe-inspiring, but it's very notable to handle that, because back when it started, I think there was one iPhone. Do you know what I mean? And like a minimal amount of Android phones, and and so therefore I think it was a lot easier probably back then when it first starts. But I think that's true of any business, in the landscape. It's like when you start, you're small, you have this little stuff, this is all you do, it's kind of static, and then you start expanding and developing. And then as it becomes a thing, especially as an industry, and you're tied to other things, the only way that GROWLr works is by having subscribers who have devices. That's without those two things, it just kind of doesn't work.
And actually download the app and use the app.
Right. Correct. I mean, look at, how we've talked over the years about Bear 411. That website is still around. People still use it to this day. And I think it will eventually not exist. I don't know when. The fact that it has a mobile browser version that can act, and I say air quotes, act like an app, has extended its life, so to speak. If that had not occurred, I think a lot more people would have left it sooner, or moved on from there. But
it still looks like something from the early 2000s, late 90s.
Well, right, and I think there's sort of a nostalgia factor in some weird way. Like, I mean, Captain Marvel just came out, and like the whole thing is that it takes place in the 90s, and there's an interesting interview that I saw as a sidebar where they talk about like, what was it like to make a movie about something that happened just yesterday? And the joke is, just yesterday was technically 20 some years ago. But for those of us that grew up in that decade, we feel like it was just last week. It was not just last week. Like, it was literally 20 years ago or more. So that becomes a whole thing that, things I think are a little cyclical. I'm not saying that they should never update, because eventually it'll come back into fashion. That's not what I'm saying. I just think that.
Anyways,
Bear 1 at some point will become like, this is how it's supposed to look. Whatever. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we've talked this to death.
I think that it's a wait and see game, honestly.
Yeah.
Just to put a button on it, that we not sure what the outcome will be.
Calm down
And-
settle down. It's fine. Everything's fine. Just let's see what happens. But it's probably not going to be as bad as you think it does. Don't catastrophize. I know we're gay and we deal with drama. Calm down.
But I can't.
Yeah, really. Very true. Hey,
No, Mama, no.
can I sidebar the topic and talk about Captain Marvel for a little bit?
That sounds like a post-show thing.
Fine.
And so if you want to know about Captain Marvel, which I have not seen, by the way, that will probably be an after the show. But in the meantime, guess what, folks? This literally is one of our shows. And that's the end. Oh. But anyways, contact us, pop over to our website, cubsoutloud.com. Shoot us an email at cubsoutloud@gmail.com. Leave us a voicemail section or otherwise at 361-COL-TALK. That's 361-265-8255. You can find us on various social media outlets at Cubs Out Loud in the appropriate place of the URL. On Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, and right here on YouTube. You can join our social entourage chat where Chris just cursed because he has kids' duties and had to run. That's too bad. And at tinyurl.com/telegram-col. If you want to know when we are recording these live, so you can make sure to pop in when we're doing it, you can find all that at tinyurl.com/calendar-col and subscribe to our Google Calendar. You can support us in a couple of ways at Zazzle.com/CubsOutLoud, where you can get merchandise such as the Cubs Out Loud version 3 shirt, which in a lovely hunter green for St. Patty's Day, or a Consent is Your Foreplay shirt that Gary is wearing. I'm not wearing anything right now. Well, I'm wearing a shirt from somewhere else and it's Bear Paw, but that's not us. You can also become a patron. Your support is very much appreciated, especially with things such as the hosting that's coming up soon here. So if you could help out even a little as $1 a month at patreon.com/cubsoutloud, that would be very much appreciated. There are plenty of benefits to find there, as well as patrons exclusives, such as a feed where you get the entire audio show. And for both Cubs Out Loud and Cubs Out Loud Drag Race, get a nice special feed. And sometimes we throw in some special patron things, as well as the bi-monthly, every 2 months, patron hangout you will be able to join and watch and listen to. You can rate us on iTunes, subscribe to us on Google Play Podcasts, and give us a thumbs up on Century. You can find me anywhere on the internet. It says Box at Buck, Puppy Box, Cup Box, something or other.
I am Theater Cub 79 on most bear sites like Bear401 and GROWLr. Or you can find me as pup_Umbra on Twitter.
If you would like to get in touch with me online, you can pretty much find me anywhere as GarBear73, GARBEAR73. If you're on Twitter and you're kind of a refugee from Tumblr, the account you want to probably ask to follow me on is got 3 X's at the end. So it's GarBear73XXX.
And with that, say good day, everybody!
Bye.
Have a good one, y'all. Okay, I actually need to use the restroom.
Okay.
Run away.
Run away. So, so you have seen Captain Marvel.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I'm becoming a Marvel fan in that I have liked the more recent movies, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is actually kind of where it began, the TV show. So, which is coming back this summer, finally.
Yeah. I was a little mad that it didn't come back like in the fall.
Well, it's all part of the bigger MCU strategy piece because it's tied in, and they don't want to give away what happens in Endgame, so therefore they postponed.
They have to hold off, and boo.
Which I think is kind of like very interesting because it makes me wonder what's going to take place. Because Coulson, well, have you seen the trailer for the new season of?
No, not the new season. I haven't seen it yet.
Okay. Anyways, I don't want to spoil that for anybody, but you can obviously go watch the trailer online, and then it's that does not spoil anything, but there definitely is an element of surprise that I was like, what the? Okay.
Let's check out YouTube. Bye.
So, yes, I went and saw Captain Marvel. I saw it on opening night. I got out of work. And I was wrapping up work, I remembered that it was coming out that day because it also was International Women's Day.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to Danielle, who works next to me, I said, hey, that was a pretty interesting tie-in. And she doesn't follow the comic book universe and doesn't know about Marvel. So it was a completely different situation for her. And she didn't understand that Captain Marvel is a woman. So... She wasn't getting it at first. Why I said it was so important that they released it on International Women's Day, blah blah blah. Until later, I said something about how she gets her powers. And then she's like, "Wait, the captain's a woman?" I was like, "Yes." And she's like, "Oh!" And it was so funny. I couldn't help but laugh because she was just like, "I figured Captain Marvel was a dude." I was like, "Nope, not in this case." So
the dude Captain Marvel was over in the DC universe, but they no longer call him Captain Marvel. They just call him Shazam.
Actually, there was a male Captain Marvel in the Marvel universe. He was the first, and he is connected to Carol Danvers, who eventually became Captain Marvel. She was Ms. Marvel first, and then she was Warbird, and she was Captain Marvel. So it's
basically there's been a whole lot of retconning since then.
Not retconning. There's a general story that goes on.
I think
Carol Danvers. I could go on for.
I know. I think the thing that gets confusing for folks is the comic book storylines, and timelines versus the MCU. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is doing things that have not existed before, or they're mashing things together that were bits and pieces of different stuff. Yeah. So, So, anyways, having really enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. I didn't go see Volume 2 in the movie theaters. It just didn't really kind of pull me in, and then I watched it, I think, on Netflix, and I was glad that I watched it that way. It's not an awful movie. It's just not as exciting. So that being said, Captain Marvel has lots of Guardians of the Galaxy kind of fun. In my opinion, Nick Fury and Carol Danvers as Marvel is just hysterical to me. It's this kind of buddy cop-ish comedy situation certain times. Coulson is in it, so the actor who plays him is in it. They do a lot of interesting, really good CG age work on those actors because it takes place 20 years ago. So Samuel L. Jackson, who's 71, 70 something, needs to look much younger. So they did some good stuff. Annette Bening was good in it. Jude Law he was okay. I think they could have recast him as someone else's him. But anyways, no, I just really, really loved it. It's so empowering. It was so great. I got hair standing up on my arms when you get to the big moment when the things kind of come together, and like her purpose, like her existence, and a lot of stuff like the past and all that kind of like comes to the present. It was just really good, and in that moment I was kind of like, this is fucking awesome. And then I thought, every woman in this audience, or anyone that sees this movie, like every woman will probably be like, yes, bitch, like just losing their shit over it.
I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it. I want to try to see it this week. But we'll see. Jim's going to be out of town next weekend, the Friday night and Saturday for most of the day. So I'm kind of like, well, maybe I'll go do it then.
Yeah.
But I also think he wants to see it. So I'm kind of like, do you want to see it? Like,
you can go see it without him, and then you can both go see it together. Because I think you're going to like it enough that you'd go back and see it again. Because I know I will.
True.
I don't know if I'll see it in a theater. I mean, it depends on how long it stays on the screens. Because the next month's going to be a little crazy for me. So if it's still on a screen here in like later April, I might go on a Tuesday matinee and see it. But because I already paid full price on opening night, and I enjoyed it, and it was. I mean, and it was a big enough deal that they temporarily at our theater used theaters that were like not meant to be the main theater, if you know what I mean. So like, ours is a 17 cent whatever thing, and so they have that flexibility because I think they were showing it on 4 different screens all at almost the exact same time. Like, they all started within a half an hour to 5 minutes of each other. Like. So it was just, they were prepared for the lines and like people turning out and that kind of stuff. And so, and it earned over 425 million or something at opening weekend. So yeah, I was super stoked about it. And it's just, it's kind of fun, and it leaves you guessing on certain things because you're not quite sure who the real bad guys are and what's taking place, and, who, certain characters are meant to be and what that comes about. And then of course I've fallen down a YouTube rabbit hole about a ton of stuff now because I didn't see Infinity War when it came out. I finally saw it much later. I find it very interesting. I now understand why like people lost their minds at the end of the movie. But now of course there's all this buildup about Endgame coming out and potentially what's going to be in it, and the new trailer just dropped, so everyone's like, I watch way too many like YouTube shows that are theories about what's really going to happen in Endgame and how they're going to, undo, maybe, sort of, kind of, possibly, things and all that stuff. And I mean, I just think it's cool. I don't consider myself like a huge fan, but I'm drawn in and I like it. And it's kind of funny because there are some other things like I still to this day don't really care about some of the other character movies, like the Spider-Man movies and the Hulk movies and what are the other ones I was thinking about? Iron Man movies. Like I'm just like, okay, like maybe I'll watch them sometime.
I mean, to be fair, there's only one Hulk movie in the MCU, the current MCU, I should say. But yeah. Hey, guess what? I'm going to stop streaming.